we're right here. Okay, people, well, welcome to this ordinary meeting of Council on the 20th of August. We'll start with that karakia. Do we have any conflicts of interest? No conflict of interest. Any apologies? I think everybody's here. We don't have any late items. Committee reports. We go straight to reports for decision on page 6, and we have the local water done well. If I could just say just a couple of words for a start. Obviously today we've reached the stage where we get the opportunity to formally adopt or not adopt a water services delivery plan as part of a Wairarapa Tararua water services controlled organisation. Before us we've got a comprehensive and detailed report which has been born out of a significant number of workshops and meetings where we have delved closely into this plan, and I will at the end of all this talk about our staff contribution, but I want to pay right at the start a huge tribute to our staff who've worked their butts off to ensure that we've had the best information at our disposal. And it's been a long, hard process for all of us, and they've done a great job. There's just a couple of points I'd like to make. Today's meeting is entirely about adopting this water service delivery plan. It's not about any other option. We've gone down that track. It's about this plan and this plan only. And I would ask that councillors remember that in the discussions which come up. And it's also worth reminding councillors that while the Masterton, South Wairarapa and Tararua councils are making the decisions today as well, we are discussing the ramifications of the plan as it pertains just to Masterton Council. What the other councils might decide to do is actually out of our hands, and we should not be assuming anything in that regard. So our focus is on Masterton and Masterton only. So now we just hand over to Maz, and she'll take us through the start of it.
Kia ora, Your Worship. Kia ora, councillors. I will take the report and attachments as read. This paper seeks Council's adoption of the Provider Water Services Delivery Plan for Masterton District Council within the Wairarapa Tararua Water Services CCO, which will then be certified by the Chief Executive prior to submitting to the Secretary for Local Government via the DIA by 3rd of September. Following community consultation, MDC decided to work with Masterton, South Wairarapa and Tararua District Councils on a regional water services delivery model. Since then, the councils and iwi have worked together to prepare the provided plan and commitment agreement and agree governance and commercial arrangements for the new organisation. Under the Local Government Water Services Preliminary Acts 2024, all councils are required to prepare a water services delivery plan. The plan is to set out how the council will deliver safe, compliant, financially sustainable services over the next 10 years. The completed plan confirms the council's and iwi's intent to legally establish the Water Services Organisation on or before 1 July 2026 and complete transition on or before 1 July 2027. It confirms that the Water Services Organisation is financially sustainable and will meet DIA's financial sustainability requirements. Although the Wairarapa Tararua plan is a joint arrangement, a CCO is a joint arrangement between the 4 councils, each of the 4 councils will submit their own plans with common sections across the 4 councils and parts specific to the respective council. You will see in our plan, Part A, F and the appendices are common. Parts B, C, D, E, and there is some additional information, is all specific to Masterton. The operating model and implementation. The Water Services CCO will be overseen by a stakeholders forum comprising shareholding council and iwi representatives and governed by a board of between 5 to 7 independent directors with specific skills requirements for the directors and board as a whole. Pricing will be ring-fenced, non-harmonised for 9 years. This will be subject to a review and a decision by shareholding councils at the 9-year point. The Water Services CCO will borrow from the LGFA under the new covenants, and council's water services related debt will be transferred to the CCO progressively as existing debt matures. A critical objective of the plan is the confirmation that water services are financially sustainable by June 2028. To assess whether a council's water services delivery is financially sustainable, the provision document from DIA asks councils to provide information about the following 3 components. Investment sufficiency. Is the projected level of investment sufficient to meet regulatory requirements and provide for growth? Revenue sufficiency. Is there sufficient revenue to cover costs, including servicing of debt of water services delivery? And the third, financing sufficiency. Are funding and financing arrangements sufficient to meet investment requirements? The plan you have in front of you demonstrates that the Wairarapa Tararua CCO is financially sustainable and will meet each of these requirements. Feedback on all of the 4 councils' plans has now been received from DIA, with nothing to suggest that the plans do not meet legislative requirements. There has been some minor suggestions in relation to presentation for ease of reading and enhanced detail on the condition of assets in state of compliance for some council plans. It is to be noted that, as per previous discussions and workshops, the modelling is, the financials within the plan has been derived at through the most recent modelling, which is a different model to what has been used historically. The decision before...
That modelling?
I'll just finish and then we're happy to take questions. The decision before you today, the resolution proposed is that Council receives the Local Water Done Well Water Services Delivery Plan, that Council adopts the plan for Masterton District Council, including the commitment agreement, as part of a Wairarapa Tararua Water Services Council controlled organisation, that Council notes the plan will be submitted to DIA by 3rd of September 2025. Council approves 1.25 million of unbudgeted expenditure to meet NDC's share of the establishment costs as per the commitment agreement. It is to be noted that the unbudgeted expenditure will be funded by borrowing and then transferred to the CCO at go live no later than 30 June 2027. Also delegates authority to the Chief Executive to update the plan prior to certification to reflect feedback from the Department of Internal Affairs on matters of consistency and detail which do not alter the Council's intent as reflected in the plan. Delegate to the CE the preparation of the CCO Constitution and Shareholders Agreement in line with the commercial agreements as per the pack provided, and notes that the final form versions of the Constitution and Shareholders Agreement will be brought back to the Council for approval in September. The options to consider today are the adoption of the plan for submission or to not adopt the plan. Officer's recommendation is to adopt the plan and have it submitted to DIA by the 3rd of September 2025. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Maz. Maz, if you could, Dan, if you just introduce Dan to us again from the point of view of the live stream, that would be useful.
Yes, absolutely. So Dan Bonifant has been working with us all collectively over the last few months on what the legislation requires, what is happening around New Zealand in this space, and to help us navigate through some of the intricacies of the legislation.
Thank you, Dan. Welcome, Dan. Okay, questions. Councillor Goodwin.
Yes, can you please talk to us about the new modelling that's come up with all these new numbers, please? There's quite a radical shift, for instance, in the from the consultation document, where it showed in 2039 that we'd be paying, what was it, $2,100 per year in Masterton, and I see that's been revised upwards by nearly 50% to $3,100.
Happy to, but just like to make the point that it was not a new model because our elected members have seen the model. We've actually worked this through. In one of the workshops we covered off the change, and David can talk a little bit more in a little bit more detail, but just like to emphasise Your Worship's opening statement that this is about the Water Services Delivery Plan and the content of the plan. Do you want to talk to that, David?
I can talk to the differences between the modelling that was used for the consultation information and the modelling that is now the basis of the Water Services Delivery Plan. So the two different models run by two different companies with a range of different assumptions underlying them. The outcome of both models is that Masterton average cost per connection is lower being in the Y+T model than doing it in-house. The price path over 10 years or over 15 years is projected in both models, but the Martin Jenkins model, the second one, doesn't project the last 5 years for all councils for the whole entity. It just adds Masterton's capital program to show a price path for Masterton for those last 5 years. You have to be careful comparing the models in terms of inflated numbers or not inflated numbers, and that's the issue Councillor Goodwin has, comparing a $3,000 figure with a $2,000 figure. One's inflated and one's not. But the underlying assumptions around the amount of efficiencies, the debt funding and the methodology around borrowing and within the LGFA limits are different between models. And so the outcomes are different, but ultimately the comparison, if the comparison between in-house and Y+T and the ring fencing or non-harmonisation for Masterton produces the same result with Y+T. Average cost per connection, not inflated, is lower than the in-house version.
Thank you, David. Maz, and if you guys do want to stay seated, you may because of the microphone situation. Okay, further questions? Councillor Hunt.
I'd just like to know, with regards to the proposed and talked about 80 million consent for Homebush, how was that figure created, or how was it worked out? Because to me, looking forward with the reduced costs in RMA and all sorts of other things that are happening, I'm sure that's going to come down. Have you got an answer for me, please?
Did you say remain seated?
Yeah, you can make space.
Okay, thank you. I've got a cold at the moment, so my voice isn't particularly strong. It's very much a ballpark estimate based on 15 years ago when the council went through the resource consent application and investment in upgrading the Homebush plant. So building bigger ponds or new ponds and irrigation to land. That investment was over $40 million, including all of the resource consent process. the standards of environmental discharge to river are likely to be higher in 10 years' time when we go to renew the consent. And therefore some further investment is going to be required, or assumed to be required by the council in that treatment plant to meet higher environmental standards. So taking the previous investment and moving forward to a new consent after 25 years, a number of around 50 million has been put in the plan and then inflated. And I think 65 million is the number spread over 3 years in terms of 2034 to 2037. So that's all it is. There's no further engineering work that backs up those numbers. It's simply a provision, and if the environmental standards are not higher or are easier to meet, and irrigation to land that the council already owns is an option, it will be significantly less expensive than what we've allowed for. So it's a provision to indicate a possibility.
Thank you.
Questions? Councillor Helena? No, we stand up to councillors, I think.
We stand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to affirm the Mayor's words that it has been a long process, and we do appreciate that staff have worked very hard and at times been challenged in ways that's been incredibly frustrating for them. But it has been for the best intention of ratepayers. So I do want to thank the staff for their work, but I'm not apologising for any challenges that I've put your way, because it has come from the right place according to my values and principles. A couple of questions. Can you clarify for me, David, Officer Paris, the difference in price between the first round of modelling and the second round of modelling, i.e. the Martin and Jenkins price, with the non-standardised NDC weightless T rate? What is the difference between what we consulted on and what is now the price? The actual difference.
The difference in dollars?
Dollars, yeah, over that maybe first 9, 15 years.
The current model that we have in the services delivery plan is lower by approximately $400 per property than what we modelled. The latest one. And the reason for that is I haven't analysed fully the previous set of modelling, but there were some reasonably high estimates of overheads of the new entity and the council in-house model. So the extra costs and overheads related to operating a water entity, whether in-house or external, in that model were quite high. Also the interest costs on the debt that were expected were higher than the second round. So the assumptions around the levels of efficiency that could be achieved were different. The ring fencing in the first model of all costs to be only for Masterton and only for the other councils. The first model isn't very clear on how the ring fencing was done. So the potential in that model was that we were sharing a lot of overheads differently than the second model, and potentially the overheads allocated to Masterton were higher. The second model has a much clearer allocation of this is Masterton cost, this is Masterton ratepayers pay that cost. The first model, there was more sharing in the way that numbers were calculated. So it's come out better. Yeah, the consultation information was at a point in time and based on a number of assumptions.
And so the ring fence cost as a result of the Martin Jenkins modelling is about on average $400 lower per connection per annum. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Approximately, I don't know exact figures. So my second question is then, have we, and sorry Mr Mayor, it's very hard to just discuss this report, because to decide this report I need to think about what the other alternative is. So I do need to do some comparisons to decide whether I'm going to agree with this proposal, this plan, or not. So I need to ask a question around, if that's okay, the in-house model or the standalone model. So the consultation prices we used in the consultation model, have they been rejigged via the Martin Jenkins model? Or are they still, we haven't changed those?
The average cost per connection is the end number of a whole lot of calculations. So it's not like we're setting a price at the start and saying this is what our target is.
Yeah.
These are the costs we estimate to operate and deliver services, and invest in the assets that need investment, and therefore the debt that associates with that additional investment. Ring fencing those costs to each council area, divide by the number of connections, equals this is where we land with an average cost per connection. It's not going to be the number that people pay. It's simply a number to arrive at to say this is an approximate number that can be compared to current.
I understand we can't request absolute accuracy because there's so many complications. I get that. But on our best modelling, our best knowledge, I'm wanting to know where the current prices sit for the ring fence price for Masterton as part of Y+T, and can we compare that with the in-house model, and was the in-house model based on the old modelling, or is it also based on some of the new assumptions?
Can I help here? It might be helpful to think of it in terms of outcomes. So if you look at the model that was initially adopted, the outcome of that, the facts spoke to Masterton being in Wairarapa Tarua as a cheaper option to doing it in-house. If you look at the current model, the outcome is the same. The numbers might differ and the gap might differ, but the numbers tell us that Masterton in Wairarapa Tarua is cheaper for the ratepayers.
It's more cheaper now with the new modelling, right, compared to the pricing we used with the consultation document. Yep.
Yeah, but in both scenarios, being in Wairarapa Tarua is cheaper for the ratepayer.
Yeah, no, I accept that. But my question is, we're comparing the new modelling for the Wairarapa +T model for Masterton only with the previous modelling which we used for the in-house. And I'm wanting to know if we've adjusted the modelling that we used in the consultation document for the in-house as we have with Y+T NDC.
Short answer is yes. Each model is separate from each other and done using the same assumptions within the model. So the comparison in the more recent modelling between the standalone and Y+T is consistent across each other, and previously the consultation information was consistent across each other.
Thank you. And so what would be really helpful now, I guess, for me and the ratepayers, could we see the difference between the two? Have we got two graphs we can display or share? So we know what the difference is. It will certainly help me make a decision at the end of this.
We're not asking for a comparison for a decision based on comparing the models.
That's how I'm going to make my decision. I need to know how costly the two models are, and I don't think that's an unrealistic request to have before I make a decision on behalf of the ratepayers.
The outcome of both models, Councillor, is that the Masterton within a Wairarapa Tararua entity is cheaper for the ratepayer.
But if it's, let's say it's $100 cheaper on average for 15 years, I might then be in favour of in-house. But if it's $1,000, if the in-house is $1,000 more expensive, then there's no way I'm going to support the in-house. I need to know the difference, and I think our community need to know.
I can bring a chart up on the screen for you that shows the Martin Jenkins in-house model and Masterton in Y+T, and the price path over the 10 years. They've done some modelling over 15 years, but the assumptions around that, Martin Jenkins, they are not confident because they don't have all of the council's numbers in those next 5 years. They've only got Masterton's numbers, so that the projections aren't as accurate, and the rates increases that would be needed to pay for Homebush are 5 to 7% per annum, which is more than what has been for the first 10 years. So by ring fencing, Masterton will have to pay for any Homebush upgrade. That's the outcome of the modelling, and it's logical that if costs are ring fence and Masterton's Homebush plant needs upgrading, then Masterton ratepayers will face some rate increases or some increases from the water entity to fund the cost of that upgrade. And as we just talked about, those costs are very much ballpark estimates. I have a graph. The numbers that are on here are excluding inflation and including GST. So the purple line is the Martin Jenkins modelling with Masterton in the water services entity. The green line is an estimate of what in-house will cost. So being in Y+T, there's around $260 a year by year 10 saving or reduction. So that would be cumulative. Beyond there, the increases over the next 5 years under the Y+T model show that they're steeper increases but arrive at about the same place of 2,200. But the assumptions around that are not, Martin Jenkins are not confident in those assumptions. The water services delivery plan is about the first 10 years and what happens beyond there and whether there's any cost sharing or whether there's an investment in Homebush that is more or less than what's been modelled is speculation at this stage.
Is that for both models?
For both in-house and, yes.
Really confident up to 10 years, but beyond that.
Yes, yeah. So I hope that answers the question in terms of the difference between, we're using the same model, Martin Jenkins modelling, same numbers, same assumptions for in-house versus Y+T. That difference of $260 per average property by year 10.
Thank you. Right, next, any questions? Councillor Goulden?
Just something at the beginning of the meeting, the Mayor mentioned that we're only looking at this model, but I just want to clarify that if we reject this W+T model, we have been assured that we can get in our standalone water services delivery plan on time. It still holds, doesn't it? Yep. Thank you. Yep. My first question is actually maybe a bit odd. It's to the iwi representatives here, because much of us trying to guess the cost of these the wastewater consent is about, I mean, at the moment we tip several billion litres of treated sewage into the river, and my understanding is iwi aren't happy with that. And whilst, as Mr. Paris mentioned, you know, we can sort of take our hands off the tiller, if you like, and just get whatever the consent, do the minimum we need, which is sort of what we've done in the past, probably. A little bit what we've
40
done
million
in the past.
investment is not.
But I'm asking, what is iwi's position about this process going forward? Do they want us to stop tipping so much treated sewage into the river, or are they happy for us to just do the bare minimum that we need to get a consent? So that's just a first question.
The consent really is about, it's at a future time, so that's, you know, we run a separate process, Greater Wellington does, around us applying for the consent, and so at that point there are conditions where iwi will feed into that on the receiving environment and various things, so it's not specifically relevant, I don't think, to the decisions today of really piped water.
It's just,
piped
forgive me,
sewage,
it's the $64 million question.
Yeah, but
And
again,
it's a wee bit relevant. To me, you know, it's a big part of, we spend a lot of time in working with iwi, and this is a very big item. I personally would just like your comments, if you're happy for us to just do the minimum, or you have other aspirations.
Would you like to go first, Ron?
no, you can do.
Kia ora tātou, tēnei te mihi mō tō whakaaro. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for asking your iwi on these matters. The few key points I'd like to make more broadly with respect to the Water Services Delivery Plan. Once again, to reconfirm our commitment to the proposal put forward by officers with respect to the draft Water Services Delivery Plan. Secondly, with respect to your question more pertinently around our aspirations for water assets moving forward, what we've been doing over the last 2 months, and we're very, very pleased and encouraged with the attitude of officers and our engagement with officers to better define what we think the direction of travel should be for acknowledging our interests in that area. And you're seeing that today through the first, the recognition of iwi through the shareholders forum. Second, through the recognition of iwi through the Mātauranga work program streams. And third, through its commitment to recognising iwi interests through the treaty settlement legislation. And then, so all of those things for us have been a very positive input to the process. With respect to our ambitions moving forward, we think that those matters, those foundations provide a platform for, I guess, recognising our interests in freshwater assets and how they're to be managed moving forward.
Thank you, Jack. Robin, did you want to respond?
Kia ora. I've always stated that I do not like any treated sewage going into the Ruamahanga. Part of the reason why I support the worldview of a council-controlled organisation is that I believe by the time that the Homebush is to be upgraded, that we as a community, I guess the collective community, will expect the same, that we don't expect our treated sewage to enter the Ruamahanga anymore, and that we'll actually have better ways of utilising treated sewage on the land rather than being deposited into the river in a flood. This is why we do support a council-controlled organisation, is that we do see a way forward, especially in regards to the Ruamahanga, which we do see as a life force of the mauri of the water. This is why we do have an interest in how water is treated, and we would expect that through this that we would have enough say. The one thing I have noticed about some of these consents, I think they are far too expensive, and I think that going forward that iwi, with the council-controlled organisation alongside with the territorial authorities, will endeavour to make sure that consents are not in the hundreds of thousands as what I'm currently reading, and I think that's fair enough to say. Kia ora.
Thank you, Robert. Any further questions?
Yes, the reappraisal of the allocation of overheads among the four entities, has that, I'm just curious, is it 25% for all four parties, which some costs have been allocated on? Have all parties agreed to that supposition of reallocation of overheads? Do you know?
What you've agreed is that the price that a consumer pays is the price that it costs to bring the service to them. And Masterton District Council, people who live within the Masterton District Council area will only pay the costs relevant to Masterton District Council. You haven't agreed every aspect of every overhead cost.
No, but, from what I heard before, there's quite a big shift, going from, 1650 to 2250, just at the start. There's been a big shift in the way overheads are being treated. And so I'm asking if this reappraisal is across the board with it.
The same approach. The same approach has been used. So the same approach has been used for all four councils in this model. So they've all got the same information that you do and the same approach to modelling a Y plus T cost and a standalone cost. The change that you can see on the chart there is the product of a whole lot of different modelling assumptions, not just overheads. There's also, like David said, the treatment of debt and the relative aggressiveness of the indebtedness of the water entity or not is also a significant factor. The establishment costs, the efficiencies, there's a whole lot of things that wrap up to give the difference. So
I thank you for that. My concern is that everyone's on the same page in terms of how those changes have been implemented. I would guess that whilst our price per connection has gone down, I would suspect some of the others, I'm looking at South Wairarapa in particular, have gone up because of that reallocation. And, if I know people, they don't always like that sort of thing. Is it fair to say that as our price has gone down, there has presumably, from what I feel, but can't quantify, been an increase in some of the others' prices per connection?
Well, there may have been, but what we've all agreed through the commercial terms is ring fencing applies, and so therefore the other councils have also agreed to that too, knowing that it may adjust some of their costs. So
well, we had that agreement a while ago, but now this is a moving feast a bit, and I realise it's not just council's fault, but, we're getting to look at figures being revised, some with GST in, GST out, inflation in, inflation out. I'm trying to pull it together and find out if these changes, which are big changes, downwards for Masterton, which is great, is, you said, Dan, it's been over a whole lot of different things being looked at. I need to know that if you went forward with this model, that the other parties, who I assume are picking up more than they were, I need some assurance that they are thus far in agreement with those changes. Or is it just Martin Jenkins sitting in isolation and saying, well, here's another way of looking at it, folks?
I'm happy to respond to that. The modelling conducted by Martin Jenkins has been across the 4 councils. They've had their own processes in terms of workshops and sharing that information. This is not a new process or new information. We have not been focused on what numbers look like for the other 3 councils. They are going through their own adoption process today. Our focus has been on Masterton inside Wairarapa Tararua, and one of the reasons for that is because you all instructed us that one of the principles were to have ring-fenced costs.
Yep, thank you, and we certainly have spent quite a bit of time on that ring-fencing.
More questions, Councillor Corwin?
Be patient. One of the concerns is the risk of an external body versus an in-house body. An external body, a future government, might turn around and say, for South Wairarapa, for some poor person in Featherston to be paying $6,600 plus their rates is insane. It's unaffordable. We're going to impose some change. That is one of my fears, that the CCO of W plus T is more vulnerable to external change by central government. We've done a good job of doing all we can to prevent it, but central government could still come in and change that body easier than it could change or attack Masterton District Council with an in-house model.
If your question is whether the CCO is at more of risk than that, then I think the answer is no. The government has not indicated that they are going to make the cost of water services the same across all of New Zealand, and any government can change any legislation. They could change the councils, they could change the water CCOs. We're on our, second or third iteration of water reform. So the risk is there, but the risk applies equally whether council provides it or a water services entity provides it.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's, we have to do our own risk assessments, and personally I would perceive the council as being more resilient structure than a CCO, but, I'm not an expert. It's, I'm having to base this on wondering what is going to happen in the future.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Nelson.
Yep. Can we have that graph up again, please, Sarah? The one that David shared with the green line. Just want a little bit of clarification around this. And just while we're waiting, just a procedural question. I understand that a member of the public wanted to present in the public forum at the beginning of the meeting, Jamie Falloon, and that was blocked. Could I please have the reason why that was blocked?
Absolutely, because it's consistent to what has been done before in the same situations, right through council. No different at all. And we've been consistent.
Can you give me an example of that having happened before, please?
I'm not going to name names, but we did have a very similar situation at the last discussion. I think that was on, I'm not sure what the topic was, but it's specifically done before.
Right, but you're not certain
And
about the
I've
topic.
related that to annual plan.
Okay.
And I've certainly related that to Jamie, and I've had a reply from Jamie saying
And what was the risk of Jamie presenting?
the risk.
Yeah, what was the reason? Why stop him?
There was
Simply because he's done
I'm
this-
being consistent, Tom.
You're
I
being
believe as
consistent.
mayor I need to be consistent in the decisions I make.
Okay.
And it was consistent.
So Jamie Falloon wasn't able to present today.
No, he was not, and he has accepted that.
He has accepted it.
He has accepted that.
With this chart here, I wasn't aware of before. Can you just clarify what the green line is?
Green lines,
Yeah. What's the green line? I'll ask lots of questions because I need lots of clarification.
in-house delivery. So Masterton taking our current LTP numbers, uninflated, with assumptions around additional costs to meet regulatory standards and Commerce Commission standards, and debt servicing, rating for depreciation and debt servicing costs, repaying debt. All those assumptions that are in the LTP, that's the price path without inflation with those assumptions.
And that would be a standalone model.
Delivered as an in-house, yes.
Okay. So what's the purple line? Sorry, I need to ask these questions because it is such an important decision. You know, I realised we've got, I think, 3 hours put aside for this meeting. Yep. What's the purple line again?
Which one?
The purple one, the bottom one.
Well, it says it on the bottom. The Water Services Delivery Plan for Masterton District Council in the Water Services entity.
Okay.
Is that this
Both of those, the purple and the green line, are numbers provided by Martin Jenkins.
Yep,
in
thank
our
you.
most recent modelling.
And so I might have got this wrong, but when Councillor Helena was speaking before, there's certainty with the green line, because that's our information, what we know for sure, that there was a little bit less certainty for the purple line. Am I correct in that assumption from what you said earlier?
They're both based on assumptions.
Yep.
There's assumptions in any forecasting forward as to how the numbers might look, but they're subject to a set of assumptions to project forward.
Okay, but the green ones are our assumptions as a
Well,
council.
they're both.
Yeah.
Inside the water entity is also our assumptions about the level of investment that's required, the overheads, our share of those overheads that Martin Jenkins have applied within their model structure that they've applied to all the councils.
Yeah. And that's based on the information the other 3 councils have given. That's where the purple line comes from.
With Masterton's costs ring-fenced
Yep.
and only divided by Masterton's connections.
Yep.
So to get that average, Masterton connections divided by the costs that are ring-fenced for Masterton.
Yep.
And the other councils, the same thing. The costs ring-fenced for them,
Yep.
including shares of overheads, divided by the number of connections that they are able to charge those costs over.
Yeah. But the green line is what we know for sure, or the assumptions are our assumptions. The other ones are based on assumptions of what other councils are saying.
No.
If I could just
Yep.
add in here, Councillor, for 10 years, yes. Beyond the 10 years, Martin Jenkins have had to make assumptions around your future projections for the 5 years, as well as lacking information about what the other councils have beyond 5 years. So for 10 years, they've done a consistent set of modelling.
Yeah.
And then in order to give Masterton a view of the impact of Homebush, they have just done that. So that's the sort of difference between the 10 years and the 15 years.
But we can be more certain about the green line because it's our information.
For 10 years.
Yeah. For 10 years we can be more certain. That's good to know. Just in terms of the workshops that we had a number of workshops. I heard again and again and again so many questions about uncertainties, about not being sure about things, about worries about the Wairarapa plus Tauranga option, because there were a lot of uncertainties. Do you feel that every single one of those uncertainties has been addressed? I'll ask that to you, Dan.
I don't think it's possible to address every uncertainty. That's not possible.
Yeah. So this is the biggest decision that I would say ever in local politics, and there's a lot of uncertainties about a model that we're potentially looking at. That we'd have more certainty about our own model because we've been managing for years, a really good insight into our numbers. So it's a safe option. But there'd be a little bit more risk in the other option because there are those uncertainties. Can you argue against that point?
I could comment that the uncertainties exist whether you stand. Some uncertainties exist whether you stand alone or you go into Wairarapa plus T. There is uncertainties around the whole future of water service delivery that exists in whatever service delivery scenario you move forward in, and they are common. There are some uncertainties around a collective water service delivery company, which you have gone through a process to resolve a significant number of the uncertainties. So I don't think it's fair to characterise one as certain and one as uncertain.
Okay. So you're saying that there's the same number of uncertainties for a Masterton standalone option as there is for the Wairarapa plus Tauranga option?
No.
So there's more uncertainty with the Wairarapa plus Tauranga option?
Yes.
Well, there has to be by its very nature because we've never done it before.
Yes.
If we go into, I just have to clarify a lot of things because I'm not sure about a lot of things. So if we go into a Wairarapa plus Tauranga option, is there a way of getting out of that option? A reasonable, practical way. So say things weren't working for our ratepayers, our vulnerable citizens, because we are a vulnerable community. Is there a way out?
Yes. You built into
what's the way out?
You built into the terms sheet the ability for a council to leave as well as the ability for a council to join.
Okay, can you tell me what the way is? Because I've forgotten, I can't remember. If you could help me, that would be really helpful.
It'll be in your commercial terms sheet, which starts on page 126 and goes through to shareholder exit.
This is really helpful because there's so many things I'm uncertain about.
You need the agreement of the other councils.
Oh, you need the agreement of the other councils. Could we withdraw on our own?
Not based on what you have agreed.
Oh, okay, so we couldn't withdraw on our own. So that's important to know as well. Just in regards to the Commerce Commission, I'll bring that out, that old chestnut out again. Now, with the Commerce Commission, have they got any authority to come in and force some level of price standardisation? Can they do that? Could they do it?
They have the ability to regulate the price you can charge a consumer.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they do.
But they don't have a power or an affordability mandate. They've said that in a presentation they provided to this council, and they have said their focus is on the cost that the price a consumer pays relative to the cost to provide the service to them.
Okay. So if you had, say, a really powerful community, say South Wairarapa, and a mayor, a future mayor with who has got a lot of connections, really strong personality, and that mayor went to the Commerce Commission or advocated publicly about the unfairness of the price differentiation between, say, Masterton and South Wairarapa. Could that have an impact, do you think?
Not based on my understanding of what the Commerce Commission have said their role is. They do not see their role as providing for standardisation of prices. As I said, they have said to this council and to a number of other councils that their focus is on the cost, a price for a consumer relative to the cost that it costs the service to provide to them, rather than standardisation.
They haven't categorically said they will not standardise prices or force some level of standardisation. Have they categorically said that they wouldn't do that?
They've said in writing and verbally that's not their role.
No, have they said they will not do it? Because they do have the authority to do it, but have they categorically said they wouldn't do it?
I'm not sure what you would require for categorically.
Okay, so it means they can. With the water services delivery model, now on many occasions I've asked in this room about what's happening behind the scenes of the Masterton model, and I've been assured that things are happening and work's being done on it. But then I look in the recommendations here, and one of the risks is that if we don't approve the Y plus T model today, there's a good chance the Masterton, it's actually one of our risks, won't be done in time. Would that suggest to you, I'll give this one to you, Kim, that we're going all in with Y plus T and that the significant focus hasn't been placed on the Masterton standalone option, despite the assurances that I've been given in this room that things were happening?
We have the ability to pull out the standalone from our Y plus T model at the moment. So the work has been done to be able to do that. So, and we believe that if it was decided today that you would not proceed with a Wairarapa Tararua model, that we could extract that component out of our water service delivery plan and submit it by the 3rd of September.
So why is it in our risks for option 2, disadvantages, would require a new plan to be developed and may not meet the submission deadline for the DIA? Why is it a risk?
Because it is a legitimate risk, and I'd just like to raise the last resolution was for officers to proceed with a Wairarapa Tararua water services delivery plan only.
So you're saying one thing and you're saying another thing. So you're saying it is weird, it is under control, but you're saying it is a risk.
No, please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. We have signalled it in the paper as a risk,
Yep.
because it is a risk. What our Chief Executive is saying is he believes, and I support that it is a risk that we can manage, but it is something that our elected members need to be aware of.
But you before said it's not a risk because you can just pull it out of this other one. So you don't feel it's a risk.
I think the risk is
I suppose
low.
everything's a risk, isn't it?
Everything's a risk, but the risk is low in regards to submitting this within the deadline.
Do you think the risk could be as high as the risk that we're putting our community under by going into something we know so little about, locking ourselves into an agreement that we simply can't pull out of without the permission of the other councils? Would it compare risk-wise? Was that more of a risk than not getting our water service delivery plan done on time?
I think that's a pretty unreasonable question of officers. We've worked to present the facts, and our recommendation speaks to the facts.
Is it an unreasonable question for our community?
Well, I think that's a question that you answer and your fellow elected members answer.
Okay, further questions? Councillor Bowen.
Tim, thank you for the report. Earlier on you talked about debt being transferred, existing debt being transferred as it matures. When is the last debt matured, and in that preceding time of the principal and interest, when that matures, is that then paid back to the organisation? Or are we carrying that can? You know?
We've put in the plan a transition period so that from the start of the entity, the amount of debt that is transferred is quantified, but physically the council has borrowed money and has commitments to repay money beyond the start date of the entity. So while we've got borrowings and incurring interest costs on those borrowings, we will pass those costs on to the entity. When we make a repayment of that debt, the entity will go and borrow to repay us. So as those tranches of debt mature, and it could be 3 years before we fully have transferred all of that debt, it's just we'll look at a more detailed plan in the future to try and shorten up that time frame. But the intention is that the water entity does not need to go out and borrow all of the money it needs on day one, that the councils will transition the debt across.
It prevents break fees.
But the cost of the debt from day one is the water entity's cost, because they've got the revenue.
Councillor Johnson.
Just a supplementary.
Oh, sorry, yes.
And that's included in the workings, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Councillor Johnson.
Just further to that, though, it does say in note 5 that that will be transferred over no later than 30th of June 27. The borrowings. It just says notes that the unbudgeted expenditure will be funded by borrowing and then transferred to the entity no later than 30th of June 2027.
Transition costs that it refers to, not the...
That's the one, not the debt. That's,
not the debt.
So that's just relating to the 1.25?
Yes.
But in saying that with the debt, the desire would be to transfer that as soon as
Yes.
possible.
Yes, but it could be 3 years
From
from the the
27?
start date, the July 27.
But that
Okay.
doesn't mean that the council essentially pays that. That's the water service entity will reimburse the
Yes,
council.
understand.
The reason for doing that is to avoid break fees, because
Yep.
we've locked in some pretty low-cost interest rates at the moment, longer term.
So then,
Local
as
government.
those come up,
So as they mature,
They
then
go
we
over.
can claim that
Yeah.
component.
And
then
costs.
Yeah.
Any further questions? There's no further questions. I'm going to move the recommendations on page 6 and 7. Do I have a seconder? Seconder, Councillor Johnson. I'm going to move into discussion, and the suggestion I'm going to have is that each of you want to make a comment. I'll give you the floor for 2 or 3 minutes if you're all like, and we'll just go in turns. I don't have any particular order, so who would anybody particularly like to start the discussion process? Or otherwise I'll just put the motion.
I'm happy.
Yes, Councillor Hunt.
I just want to comment further on Councillor's question to the iwi about the water from Homebush. There's no way at all that any wastewater will be going into any river when this consent finishes. But there is a wonderful opportunity for us as Masterton to use that wastewater as a resource. We've talked about it before, and I think by pumping under the Wainara River, we have an open opportunity there. Greytown are talking about pumping up to perhaps Masterton. There's a wonderful opportunity there. Tasmania Irrigation are doing it, they're using it from the cities, and we've got to do the same thing. So I think what might actually cost us money if we go on with consents, the long term is we're going to get money back from the resource we sell.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Discussion? Jack.
If I may reply, just to acknowledge, the commitment towards, removing contaminants from the Ruamahanga and other awa, as my whanaunga from Kahana has pointed out, the restoration of the Māori in those waterways is critical. So, even at these early stages of discussions, it's really pleasing to hear the commitment, David. And just further said to that, Māori, of course, are focused on the restoration and protection of Māori. We also have Māori that are in the business and operation of businesses, and therefore we need to look at what the solutions are moving forward, including some of those opportunities for water storage as well. There's a lot to go on water to flow under the bridge, David, but
Clean water.
Clean water, but there's a commitment to work together on those matters.
Further discussion? Councillor Goodwin.
One of the disturbing things about the W+T model is and I know some people say it doesn't matter about the other councils, but if you're all going to go in together, it does matter. And the fact that South Wairarapa and Tararua District Council will be facing virtually double the recommended 2.5% of average median household, whatever it is. Whilst our figure's fine, that figure is extraordinarily unaffordable for them. And that is, I wouldn't go into business with someone I saw as going to be on their knees very quickly. It's just, to me, that's a very powerful risk in this decision. And it is, and the decision for me is about risk. It's, we've looked at various modelling and pricing. Sadly, it's generally only over 10 years, which is too short, I think most people would agree, for major infrastructures like this. And so that's been a disappointment that we only had that 10-year time frame. It just increases the uncertainties of the joint model, especially with the situation of especially those towns with multiple wastewater plants, which can be very expensive. And there may be in future, New Zealand may be the place that says, no, we're not going to have any of it in the rivers. I would suggest to you, David, that you won't get that for $64 million. And in fact, if you look at 3 plants in South Wairarapa and 7 up in Tararua, it could be a very, very high impost on people to do that. Not that I'm shying away from it necessarily. So those issues and the fact that it's not easy for us to get out of this make it an unacceptable risk from my point of view for our community.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman. Further discussion? Councillor Nelson.
Again, all I hear, or what I hear, maybe I'm different, risk, uncertainty, the fact that we're stuck in this option if it's chosen today, and there isn't a way out that we can take on our own, it's dependent on the other councils. That is such a massive risk for our community. So 5 people in this room can choose today to put our community at massive risk at a very, very, very uncertain future. I find it completely unacceptable. I can't believe we're putting our vulnerable community in a position in which their water costs could be significantly higher, in which they're potentially going to be subsidising the water costs of other people living in the other areas that make up this CCO. I just can't believe that we're going to do it. Our community is incredibly vulnerable. I have asked countless times in countless council meetings and complimented council about how well we're managing our water infrastructure at the moment. We see green light after green light after green light on those reports, and this is a compliment to council because we are doing things very well on our own within the parameters that we have. Sure, they'll have to be raised to meet new legislative requirements, but that's even better. Around this table, there's a lot of ability, a lot of knowledge that we can do to serve the people that we've been elected to represent. We're not elected to represent South Wairarapa, Masterton or Tararua. We're elected to represent our community. So we can do it today and we can use our vote to make sure that that's what we do. I'm staggered to believe that we're going to play poker essentially with the future of our residents and ratepayers. I just can't believe it. And I truly hope more than anything that we choose to go alone today. Or, in fact, that's essentially what we're doing if we choose not to support the Y+T option.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. When we started this journey, I remember the people around the table who were reluctant to look at collaborating with the other councils. Their key priority was looking after Masterton ratepayers and the cost per connection. With all the workings, and they're based on assumptions, but they're based on the same assumptions with all councils together, it has repeatedly shown you that Masterton ratepayers will pay less when combining with Wairarapa plus Tararua. So to me it ticks that box on cost. The other biggest concern was whether Masterton would be in a position of subsidising other councils. We've also ticked that box. The critical objective of the Water Service Delivery Plan is investment efficiency, which to translate means lift the standards but also provide for growth. Revenue sufficiency, which was to cover our costs of service and also to cover our debt. And financing sufficiency, which was so that we could meet our investment requirements in infrastructure. DIA has said that this water service delivery plan ticks all those boxes. I can't see any reason that we wouldn't go with Wairarapa and Tararua. This plan offers lower costs for Masterton ratepayers, which is important to all of us and everyone sitting around this table. Masterton ratepayers will not be subsidising other councils because the costs are cost for service and cost for debts. It's ring-fenced. Masterton decisions cannot be vetoed, and cost for services are applied to each community, so each territorial authority pays for its own work and its own debt. The Wairarapa and Tararua plan provides sufficient investment to meet DIA's improved and increased regulatory requirements. It covers costs to offer the service, it covers debt levels and repayments, and protects Masterton ratepayers during decision-making processes. This delivery service plan also delivers the benefits of sharing services and collaborating with our neighbours to maximise efficiencies and economies of scale. There is no reason not to approve this delivery service plan. Whilst we may not see the whole staircase, it's really important we take the first step.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Further discussion? Councillor Helena.
Can I go after Robin?
Councillor Helena. He's not driving the bulldozer through this one.
Or can I go after you, Mr Mayor? Yeah, Councillor Johnson's dead right. This model does tick all the boxes, but what I'm hearing from the CE and Maz is that the standalone is going to tick all the boxes as well. So I'm not sure if that's a compelling argument, not for me anyway. Cost has always been a big issue for me, and I've lived on in the poor part of town, and I've worked in the poor part of town, and I really know how it is for some of these families and how they struggle. And so for me, the key component of my decision is going to be around costs. And when I'm looking at the latest modelling, despite all the uncertainty, on average for about the first 9 years, there's about a $200 difference. Best knowledge, best assumptions we've got. In favour of the Y plus T model. Having said that, going down that track brings a great deal of risk. If I look at the other implementation plans, South Wairarapa, average costs in about 8 or 9 years, 6.4 or 6.6k, can't remember. Tararua, plus 5k. Masterton, plus 4k, and we're sitting around the 2k mark. Dan, you might be able to help me with this next question, but I think through these discussions we've talked about, I don't know, is it international affordability criteria or is it a national affordability criteria that water rates shouldn't be any more than 2.5% of household average income? Is that a general guideline?
It's a general guideline.
Or has that changed?
It's a general guideline DIA is referring to.
Yeah. So that general guideline DIA is referring to, South Wairarapa is way above that 2.5%, their water rates. Tararua the same, Carterton the same. We won't be. I feel sorry for the people in South Wai who are going to have water rates of about 6,000 plus $2,000 to $3,000 council rates, and it's pushing their rates up to over 10,000 a year. How long will they be able to sustain that? How long will they put up with that before they start screaming and shouting? How long before government or some other body steps in and says, actually, you're one entity, this is not fair. Masterton, your rates are about $2,000 per household. Featherston, your rates are $6,600 per household. I cannot believe that that will not be an issue down the track. If I was in central government, it would be an issue to me. And in my way, I'd say, yes, it should be harmonised. But the option for harmonise was cast out real quick. And harmonisation does work if we do it over a population base of about 500,000. Sure as hell it doesn't work and is not fair over a population base of about 50,000. The only way forward in terms of addressing that risk, particularly with South Wairarapa District Council, in my head anyway, is Masterton ratepayers subsidising their water rates. And I think there's a huge risk that that's going to happen. If you look at the two plans for South Wai and Tararua, they sort of reinforce my last point. They say they think there's a question of affordability. They acknowledge there's a question of affordability even though they've agreed to ring fencing. The risk is, will our government step in? We as a council, I'm very proud that we've done everything we can to try and minimise us having to subsidise those other councils. But we've been repeatedly told that can't be guaranteed 100%. How much can it be guaranteed? No one really knows. If it can't be guaranteed, one of the obvious solutions is Masterton District Council subsidising those other ratepayers. And as much as I feel sorry for them, I got voted in, I believe, as an elected member, to make the best possible decisions I can for as many ratepayers as I can. And that means for me, I'm not prepared to put this risk, I'm not prepared to support this proposal because it puts that risk on our ratepayers. And I, for one, am not prepared to wear that responsibility. As has been mentioned before, the reason our ring-fence water rates are significantly less than the others is because our council has actually done a good job, despite the criticism we fire at them. But for our council to have done a good job means our ratepayers have sacrificed some of those other nice things, right? Because we've probably invested more in infrastructure than those other councils. Potentially we're now saying, actually, we've sacrificed those nice things. Our council, our ratepayers have sacrificed those nice things to ensure that our pipes in the ground are a bit better or our stormwater systems are a bit better. And now, and those other councils probably haven't done that, and potentially now we're going to be subsidising their pipes as well, even though we've already sacrificed those other nice things ourselves. So for me, it's my biggest concern in going down this path is that I know iwi have mostly want to go down the combined track and understand the reasons, because I think it gives them bigger influence over a wider region of the Aroi. But as I said, I'm here to represent the Masterton ratepayers. They voted me in here, and I'm not prepared to put the risk of our ratepayers, who are on average lower paid than the ratepayers in the other districts, not prepared to put them at this risk. Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion? Councillor Bogan.
Yeah, I just want to thank all of those involved, staff, councillors, their views. For me, I actually see this as a glass half full. opportunity, okay? We can see that through the 10 years, the 9 years, 10 years it'll be, that we've been able to guarantee the non-standardisation. So we see a district that will, in the region, that will have some of the lowest combined rates possible. Not only water, but it will be the ongoing rates. So we now become a very desirable place to come. Our growth will be higher than normal. We will get more people here to help with our core services. I welcome this because of the ability to work closer with iwi. It's one of those things. And I said it 3 or 4 years ago. If we had previously worked a bit more closer with iwi, then maybe we wouldn't have the issues that we have with our rivers and that now. Okay? So for me, I will support this. There will be challenging times ahead. There will always be challenging times ahead. But I believe this is an opportunity going forward. And I tend to look at the positive sides of it rather than clearly being talked about risk, where everything there is risk. There is a risk of going alone and the DIA coming into us and saying, you're not doing that. You're now going to go with the other councils and that standardisation caper you wanted, that's gone. So this is where I think we head down the track. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. But I think that can be done.
Thank you, Councillor Bayer. Any further discussion? People with Rob, then Marama.
I'll just go over a couple of the figures. So if I understand that the Homebush is about $60 million, and we just say for an example, if it was $60 million and there's at year 10, let's just say you get the whole district, that's the 4 councils, at about 25,000 connections at today's rate, that would actually equal $2,400 for the year for each of those 25,000 residents, which basically means it's $46 a week. If it was just Masterton by itself at $60 million with 11,000 connections, that would equal $5,454 and a number of cents, and that would actually equal $104 per ratepayer connected to the water. That to me is the numbers. That's where it stacks up. And I think if you honestly look at perhaps where Tararua and South District Wairarapa Council see themselves climbing a big hill, they probably already know, those sitting councillors today, that in year 10, their communities actually get to pay for Homebush. So I think Masterton does pretty well out of this, and I still think it's the way forward. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Turner.
Kia ora. I guess when you come to the table, you will come with your own frame of reference. And my frame of reference is, or the principle, is that relationships is really important to me. Obviously, figures are important to Robin, other things are important to you. But I think relationships are really important. And the Tararua Wairarapa model, I've seen through the development of it that the relationships that we have as a people are pretty strong, in that we've got most of the things that we wanted. There's one thing we didn't get, but we can't have everything we want, I suppose. And so I'm quite heartened by that. Also, I think that for Māori, we're pretty resilient. Yes, we're poor, but we're resilient. We've been here this long, we'll be here even longer. And we don't like being poor. Some of us have managed to change our lives a bit. But we're resilient. we find a way. And whatever happens, we'll still go on. Also, I'd like to bring up the fact that the question that Councillor Goodwin asked of the iwi reps. I really think that, yes, Māori and the environment is important to them. That's our earth mother. But I think it's important to everyone. And so we all help to put stuff into the rivers, but now we're all trying to get it back and put it on to land. So I will vote for the Tararua model, Tararua model, because, like you, I like to think of positive things going forward. Kia ora.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lennox.
Thank you. Councillor Tuta, I appreciate that different perspective you just shared with us. Thank you. And I just want to acknowledge all the effort, hours, hard work that all of our staff and council have put into this very beastie subject matter. So at our last meeting where we had to decide the next step, I agreed on principle to progress forward to this, where we are today, based on principle. And they were around the concerns we had in regards to cost and ring fencing. And I'm happy with the fact that we were able to get to the place we are today with those concerns ironed out and sort of answers given. The revised modelling today, it was really good. Thank you for showing that graph, because that did clear up a few queries that I'd had over the last few days, and we can see that it is in favour to Masterton ratepayers, the local water, the Y+T model. And I just want to acknowledge Tim and Tom, thank you, because you have raised some really awesome questions, and you've given me the opportunity to really today consider my decision. And I didn't come in here with a predetermined decision. I spoke to myself and said, look, you've got to listen to what's happening around the table. So I acknowledge the points that you've raised. But I think, as Deputy Mayor Johnson said, if we get back to the purpose of what local water done well is about, I feel for the future of our district collectively, and as Madhava spoke about, the people and our relationships, yes, there's risk. There is risk in everything we do. But I feel comfortable to proceed with the Y+T model based on really the new modelling forecasting we have, and just around the work in regards to the agreement that we've got on the table for us all to work collectively, the four councils, with the new industry. Thank you.
Thank you. From my own point of view, it's been really comforting for me really to listen to this discussion. I know there are some who have spoken out against the Wairarapa proposal. But what's comforted me most has been the number of positive comments regarding this plan. And Councillor Bowyer, for instance, mentioning what it could do for us here in Masterton and for our district. There's something actually that I hadn't really given a heck of a lot of thought to from that point of view, and I think that's very positive. Councillor Tuta, I thought you summed it up beautifully in your own way. Thank you for that. Our iwi reps as well, and Councillor Johnson and Councillor Holmes. So, I mean, to me, the difficulty about this whole thing has been that there is uncertainty. But I think we have to be brave. When it comes to sitting around a council table, you have to make decisions, and I agree with Tim here. You have to make the decisions which are the best, and Tom, the best for your ratepayers. And we've sat around a lot of workshops, and we've had a lot of meetings. I counted up the number of meetings I've had on water around this table speaking to other mayors, going to Wellington for meetings. I've had 35 meetings in which water has been discussed. And so I've come to the conclusion that the Wairarapa is not only the best result for our ratepayers, it's really the only option we have. I don't want to talk about any great length about the intricacies of the plan because it's all been covered. But as Councillor Johnson said, well, I mean, we had questions over harmonisation, we had questions over deep ring fencing, we had questions over the setup of a shareholders group and how iwi would be affected there. They've all been answered positively. As I say, there will always be uncertainties. But the other thing that comforts me is that when we went through a public submission process on which direction we should take, we didn't get a lot of submissions because this is a very complex debate. But 60% of we did get were in favour of the Wairarapa Taurua option. And that tells me that our community, who have taken the time to look deeply into this, see the value in Wairarapa Taurua. I also note that in a lot of the discussion we had here today, there was talk about the other councils and what the risk of us going with them could be because of what this whole thing could mean to them. This is our decision. This is the decision we're making today for Masterton. Those other councils are meeting today and they've got groups of councillors around their table who have had the same introduction and build up to this that we have. It is up to them, and I've got faith that they will look at their councils and they'll decide what is the best for them. So really, that's not we don't need to be concerned about that. That's in very good hands. We've worked, Craig and I worked through with the AOG, with the other councils. We know that they know that they've got problems just like we've had, and they'll work through them, and I've got confidence that they'll make the best results for their councils. But this is all about making the best result for our council, and I've absolutely got no hesitation in proposing that we accept the recommendations before us today and move forward into what will be a new era for the delivery of our water services. So I have moved the recommendations on page 6 and 7. Councillor Johnson has seconded. There is a note here that we've added in another resolution so we can incorporate DIA feedback, which was received yesterday, and it's in number 6. And Harriet's going to put that up. I'll ask Councillor Johnson if she'll agree to that going forward as well. Delegates, is this it? Here is it? Yeah. Delegates authority of the Chief Executive to update the WSP prior to certification to reflect feedback from the Department of Internal Affairs on matters of consistency and detail which do not alter the Council's intent as reflected in the attached WSOP. Happy with that, Bex? Thank you. I now am going to put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
In fact, I'll ask that the hands be raised, please. If you could raise your hands. There are 6 against.
Division.
The division being Councillor Helena, Goodwin and Nelson against. The rest 4. The motion is passed. I want to now, if I could, just finish that with some really heartfelt thanks on behalf of Council that we've reached where we've reached today. First, and I'm going to single out Maz, you personally. You've been an absolute rock in the manner in which you've led this whole debate for our Council. I would hate to think how many hours waking and sleeping where local water done well's occupied your thoughts, Maz, and your leadership has been truly outstanding. So thank you. Big thanks too to Kim, David and the many other council staff who've sweated this for so many months as well. I know the pressures have been enormous on you guys, and you've had your own jobs to do as well. And to reach this stage relatively unscathed, I think is a huge tribute to you as well. To Dan and your team. Having you as regular contributors to our discussions, Dan, has been of immense benefit. Your knowledge and expertise, your willingness to answer the tough questions without ever losing your cool, I think has been really great. And your knowledge of everything local would have done well has been really impressive. So thank you so much for your input. The councillors and iwi reps, the decision makers, very well done to you all. I mean, this has been a subject so complicated and complex. It was always going to produce some feisty debate, and it's certainly done that. And no matter what the final outcome, I think we all understand there'll be those out in the community who disagree with the path we've taken. That's what happens. That's nothing unusual. But at the end of the day, each of us have voted for what we truly believe is the best for the ratepayers of Masterton District. And that's what we're here to do. So now we wait to see the outcome of the meetings of the other three councils, and from there we hopefully can move forward to a time where the plan is accepted and a new era for the delivery of our water services begins. But thank you all. It's been I know I've had a hell of a lot of sleepless nights. It's been a pretty long debate, but this has been a momentous decision today, and thank you all for your cooperation. Okay, we now go into public excluded. Will somebody move that we go into public excluded? Move Councillor Bowes, second Councillor Holmes.